everyone, my name is Putri from FC BIOS and you are listening to FC BIOS podcast series, the podcast that brings science to the highest level for people who love working in scientific field. Today, I am going to talk about why halal media is so important for GMP with Jason, who is a trained researcher with years of experience in microbiology and food safety applications. Well, he is actively giving training and support to the industrial labs in Malaysia currently. We will be discussing everything there is to know about why halal media is so important for GMP. Welcome, Jason, to FCB podcast series. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi everyone, thanks Putri for that splendid brief introduction. Thank you so much for having me.
So Jason, I feel like when it comes to halal, many people are a little bit confused as to what exactly halal entails. I'm even at times confused with the sign no pork, no lard. Does it mean that it is halal for Muslims? Though there is a genuine interest in Islamic practices, people often misunderstand halal concept. This is either due to lack of information or an abundance of misinformation. But for me, it's more to it. I feel like there is more misconception of halal manufacturing or production line. It's like more of like being behind the scene. So Jason, maybe you can help us to educate and clear up any false narratives to actually unravel this halal haram misconception.
Sure, Putri. In Malaysia, halal has become a standard for food industry. And the main committee to handle this is the Department of Islamic Development of Malaysia, which is JAKIM. And this body actually tasked to check on food producer, distributor, and importer, as well as issuing halal certificate. The concept of halal actually derived from the Holy Al-Quran, which has been practiced for centuries to come. Simply, halal means permissible or allowed in Arabic. Talking about misconception, many perceive halal is something to do religiously, right? Also, halal has been associated a lot with food. Having this big idea implanted in themselves, halal being no pork, no lard concept, which is totally wrong.
So it's wrong.
Yes. So in the production wise or in the production line, the biggest misconception that people are not aware of is that culture media in contact with the food manufacturing plants itself.
Okay, so you just explained that no pork, no lard is actually, the concept is actually wrong when we think of like it is actually halal.
Yes.
All right. So, and I heard that you mentioned about like people are not being aware of culture media in contact with food manufacturing. So you mean to say there is such existence as halal culture media?
Yes, Putri, indeed. So basically, culture media or growth medium is basically a medium designed to support the growth of a microorganism. And FC BIOS, we believe that every point matters, including the usage of halal microbiological culture media to meet the standard guidelines of Malaysia halal standards.
Oh, this is great, Jason. I just knew that there is such halal culture media exists. So like I felt relief, after your explanation because issues like misconception and then trust, counterfeiting halal logo are some, like, to me, a worrying topics that critically needs to be addressed. So, Jason, like, I'm wondering, what does this halal has to do with GMP?
Okay, so Putri, one should understand the correct meaning of GMP and its relation to halal. GMP or Good Manufacturing Practice is a system to ensure that the products that are constantly produced and controlled according to the standard quality. And its objective is to basically minimize the risk involved in any production that cannot be eliminated through testing of the final product. Alright, so GMP covers all aspects of production from the starting material, premises, and equipment, and all the way to training and the personal hygiene of the staff itself. So GMP actually offers a or what we say, a guideline and the best practices for halal food manufacturing or a certified halal production line.
Alright, so come to my understanding, like this halal and GMP somehow it's more about like hygiene, assurance, liability, and quality.
Yes, that's correct.
Alright, okay, that's something new. Like I would like to share something with you. Like a few days ago, I just like visited a manufacturing plant, and I saw this one sign, okay, where they stated halal premise, pork and its constitute are prohibited. In regards to this sign, I would like your help, okay, Jason, to help me on understanding, okay, on how is this going to relate between halal culture media in the supply chain or manufacturing plant. Because come to my understanding as well, that F&B and pharmaceutical products can be considered halal as long as there is no porcine or its constitute brought into the premises.
Okay, so Putri, halal consideration is not solely based on just the ingredients, right? So it's not based on raw materials or the composition or even porcine or its constitute. But we need to think beyond its ingredient, right? Like, for example, environmental condition that the product is being manufactured and even the production line as well, right? For GMP requirement, quality control is very important. Therefore, a microbiological laboratory is actually required to test the microbiological contamination risk in any production line, all right, especially food. So maybe can give an example. Pharmaceutical companies need to regularly perform what we know as the media fill test, all right, in order to verify whether any adequate microbiological state in their aseptic production process, all right. So this media fill test is actually very critical for microbiological tests to be carried out in order to stimulate the normal manufacturing condition by replacing any pharmaceutical product with a culture media.
So you mean to say media field test is just solely for pharmaceuticals to check on their halal, like maybe certification to be certified as halal?
Okay.
Or it covers as well food manufacturing plant?
Okay. So thanks for bringing that up. So basically, this media field test is not only for pharmaceutical companies, but it's also for F&B line, right?
I see.
Okay. Yes.
All right.
So moving on, this culture media that in contact with any surface of the production is known as what we call a risk point. So therefore, this culture media used in the within the premise, if it's non-halal, can actually affect the entire production. So therefore, culture media that is in contact with the production line is crucial. So I believe that every point matters, including the usage of the halal microbiological culture media to meet the guidelines of Malaysia halal standards.
So Jason, after your explanation, okay, that to consider halal means you need to look beyond the ingredients. So beyond the ingredients means it's beyond like the environmental condition, like as you mentioned. So the environmental condition means the environmental condition of that manufacturing line.
That's correct.
Or the production line.
That's correct.
All right. So same as well for pharmaceutical companies, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So that means halal covers from farm to fork.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. So and like I think like earlier you mentioned about the risk points. So maybe you can elaborate more or further on the risk points that you mentioned earlier.
All right, sure. But before I go to that, let me explain what's the purpose of this culture media that I've been talking about, right?
All right.
So basically, culture media is a media to detect the growth of microorganisms that may lead to contamination and is commonly used in the microbiological lab. All right. The lab will basically use the culture media for sampling, tests, detection tests, recovery and growth promotion tests as well. As mentioned earlier, risk points are the points where the culture media will get in contact with the production line for microbiological testing. So let me give you a very simple example here, right? So, for example, surface cleaning. How do we ensure that the surface is clean or the cleaning procedure is adequate, right? So the lab will actually conduct what we call a swab surface test in any of the surface of in a production line to test for any microorganism after the cleaning procedure to ensure cleanliness and prevent contamination at the same time.
Okay, Jason, does surface cleaning includes together adultery tests or ATP testing, something like that?
Yes.
Alright, so any other examples that you can share with us?
Okay, I can give you another examples in the pharmaceutical company, right? Pharmaceutical company, the aseptic process simulation, where, as I mentioned just now, as I explained earlier as well, a media field test. So basically, a media field test is basically a performance of an aseptic manufacturing procedure by using a sterile microbiological growth medium in replace of a drug solution. Okay, so this is basically to test whether the aseptic procedure are adequate to prevent contamination during an actual drug run.
Okay, so from what I understand, is that by hook or by crook, media field test is like must to do for a pharmaceutical company.
Yes, and it's a very common test as well.
Okay, perfect. So I guess the comparison between halal and haram has clearly been defined by you, Jason. Okay, with detailed explanation on the application of halal and science. So based on your explanation a while ago, in my personal opinion, I think like both the committee, okay, the halal committee, JAKIM, for instance, and the QA/QC team should look beyond than just the quality and price of culture media. Is that so?
Oh, no, that's a good one, Putri. I have no comment on that. Personally, they should pay more attention when inspecting and questioning your culture media supplier, especially on the raw material, the source of origin, and its related certification. Probably, one should ask themselves more what to look for when conducting a halal checklist at your facility, and the list of ingredients used in both laboratory and manufacturing site.
Then if that's the case, Jason, what should food manufacturer look for when you say they should know the list of raw materials? Like what's the concern with raw materials has to do with the importance of halal culture media and its linkage with GMP?
That's a very good question, Putri. But before we go to that, one will need to understand the nomenclature of the media or the raw ingredient itself and the source of media component. So, microbiological media or the culture media is basically a growth medium to use to grow a microorganism. In another word, it contains everything that the bacteria needs to grow outside the body under a laboratory condition. Basically, it contains organic and inorganic compound, which consists of carbohydrates, protein, minerals, enzyme, chemical dyes, and indicator. However, in media, for carbohydrates and protein, the term or the jargons that we use are meat extracts, peptones, peptides, tryptophan, or even amino acids. These are the jargons that we use when we actually write down the ingredients in the media bottle, right? And all these are actually carbohydrates and protein. So basically, different sources will have different names. The source of the components is important when it comes to halal. All right. So, and the source can be from a swine, a bovine, chicken, or even a plant base. This also includes the enzyme used to process of extracting the component from its raw form. So, it is important to know where all these components in the media comes from. Is it from a halal source or not?
Oh, so if that's the case, then for a personnel or for a researcher in a lab, so being able to know whether it is from a halal source or not. So I guess what they need to practice is that whenever they bought a media, so they need to check for the raw ingredients or the content of the media.
Yes,
Right?
that's correct.
And then at the same time, I guess they should ask the supplier, okay, like where does the source or what is the source of the raw ingredients listed in the content of the culture media?
Yes.
Is that so?
Yes, Putri.
So, and not only that, I guess like when you mentioned about the jargon words just now, I think that I capture like peptones or peptides. So, as a researcher or laboratories, okay, I think they also need to be aware of this jargon, so it's not too jargonish for them.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Phew. Feels like we have debunked the halal food myth, Jason, today. So it seems like it's a common knowledge that halal food is a requirement in Islam. But however, the intricacy of what makes halal food halal, okay, may at times be misunderstood by both Muslims and non-Muslims alike. So well, Jason, looks like it's a wrap. Thanks, Jason, for the informative discussion on why halal media is so important for GMP.
Most welcome.
Well, if you have any questions, suggestions of feeling a little bit cranky and would like to complain to us, do email us at enquiry@fcbios.com.my or follow us on our social media. See ya in a couple of weeks!